The holographic display flickered in the dim light of the underground command center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. Admiral Mix Blackwood stood motionless, her weathered hands clasped behind her back, as she studied the incoming Dominion fleet. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of secrecy. Commander Jun Park looked up from his quantum terminal, his augmented eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "Dominion fleet holding position at lunar orbit. Admiral, 10,000 ships, just as intelligence predicted. Their energy signatures match our simulations perfectly." Nyx allowed herself a small smile. The Dominion always did love their shows of force, their grand displays of military might. They had no idea they were performing exactly as Earth's strategic AI had predicted they would, down to the precise number of ships. Above them, on the surface, Earth maintained its carefully crafted facade of technological mediocrity. Crude chemical rockets, clumsy space stations, and primitive fusion experiments, all meticulously orchestrated to maintain the illusion of a species barely reaching for the stars. "Grand Marshal Krivax is hailing all Earth frequencies," Lieutenant Rama Singh announced from her communication station. "Standard Dominion ultimatum protocol." On the massive screen dominating the command center's front wall, the imposing figure of Grand Marshal Krivax materialized. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the light of distant stars, creating rainbow patterns that had terrified countless civilizations into submission. 4 pairs of compound eyes focused on the camera, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. "People of Earth," his translated voice boomed, "your isolation ends today. The Dominion extends its gracious offer of membership in our grand empire. Submit within 1 planetary rotation, and your transition will be peaceful. Resist, and we will demonstrate why no species has successfully defied us in 10,000 years." Nyx nodded to Lieutenant Singh to terminate the incoming transmission. "Send our response to the Dominion fleet. Text only." The message was simple. No. Nyx turned to address the command center crew, each member representing the pinnacle of human achievement in their fields. 20 years ago, when the first Dominion scout ships entered our solar system, Earth's governments made a choice. Instead of racing to catch up with their technology, we would take a different path. While they mastered the light, we studied the darkness between stars. While they built bigger ships, we built smarter ones. While they expanded outward, we expanded inward. She gestured to the holographic display, where thousands of red dots represented the Dominion Armada. They expect to find a primitive species cowering before their might. Instead, they're about to learn why humanity's greatest strength has always been our patience. Commander Park's augmented eyes flashed as new data streamed in. "Phantom Fleet reporting ready, Admiral. All ships in position within dark space pockets." The Phantom Fleet was humanity's masterpiece. 5,000 ships that didn't so much fly through space as slip between its layers. Their quantum-locked hulls and dark matter drives were invisible to conventional sensors, and their neural-linked crews could react with computer-like precision while maintaining human creativity and adaptability. "Signal the fleet," Nyx ordered. "Operation Nightfall begins now." Across the solar system, precisely calculated tiers appeared in space itself. The Phantom Fleet emerged from their dimensional pockets, their obsidian hulls seeming to absorb rather than reflect light. Each ship bore the emblem of humanity's new age, a silver phoenix rising from a black star. In his flagship, Grand Marshal Krivax's compound eyes widened as his sensor officers reported the impossible. Ships appearing from nowhere, using technology that shouldn't exist, arrayed in perfect formation around his fleet. Before he could issue orders, Admiral Blackwood's voice echoed through every ship in his fleet, translated perfectly into the Dominion language. "Grand Marshal Krivax, the people of Earth have a counteroffer. Withdraw your forces immediately, and we will allow you to return to your empire with your fleet intact. Stay and learn why humanity chose to master the darkness rather than fear it." As she spoke, the Phantom Fleet powered up their primary weapons, devices that could literally tear holes in space-time, sending anything caught in their effect into the void between dimensions. A technology the Dominion had deemed impossible, yet another example of humanity's talent for achieving the unthinkable when pushed into a corner. The opening moves of a battle that would reshape the galaxy were about to begin, and only one side knew the true rules of the game. Grand Marshal Kryvax had never known fear. In 10,000 years of Dominion history, no marshal had ever retreated from battle. Yet as he watched the impossible ships surrounding his fleet, he felt something alien crawl up his crystalline spine. Analysis, he demanded, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. His science officer, Zilara, worked frantically at her station, her crystalline appendages flowing across the neural interfaces. Marshal, these ships, they're not generating any engine signatures we recognize. No radiation, no plasma exhaust, nothing. It's as if they're not actually moving through space at all. On his command display, Kryvax watched as the human vessels maintained their perfect formation. Their black hulls seemed to drink in the starlight, making them look like mobile holes in reality itself. The Marshal had conquered 37 species across his career, and none had ever possessed technology like this. They're blocking all retreat vectors, his tactical officer reported, voice trembling. The humans have somehow predicted every possible hyperspace exit route. It's mathematically impossible, yet. In the Earth Command Center, Admiral Blackwood watched the Dominion fleet's energy signatures fluctuate as they tried to find an escape route. The strategic AI had predicted this too. The moment when an overconfident enemy realizes they've walked into a trap centuries in the making. Deploy the quantum mesh, she ordered. Commander Park's augmented eyes flashed as he relayed the command. Around the Dominion fleet, hundreds of small, dark satellites emerged from dimensional pockets. They activated simultaneously, generating an interlocking web of quantum fields that would prevent any form of faster-than-light travel. Marshal, Solara cried out. They're generating some kind of field effect. Our hyperdrives are being suppressed at the quantum level. Kryvax's compound eyes narrowed. Impossible. No species has ever managed to manipulate quantum fields at this scale. The energy requirements alone. That's because they're not generating the energy, Zilara interrupted, her professional composure cracking. They're harvesting it directly from dark space. Marshal, these humans haven't just reached our level of technology. They've been advancing along a completely different path. Everything we know about physics, they're simply ignoring it. In the command center, Lieutenant Singh's console lit up. Admiral, we're detecting power spikes across the Dominion fleet. They're charging weapons. Nix nodded. It was the predictable response of a species that had relied on brute force for millennia. Launch the resonance probes. Let's show them why that was a mistake. Across the Phantom Fleet, small, dart-like objects launched toward the Dominion ships. They moved like liquid shadow, passing straight through the enemy's shields as if they weren't there. Enemy weapons at 90% charge, Singh reported calmly. Marshal, unknown devices have penetrated our shields. Kryvax's defensive officer shouted. They're attaching to our hull. No, they're passing through the hull. The resonance probes, another product of humanity's research into dark space, phased partially into another dimension as they penetrated the Dominion ships. Each probe carried a simple quantum program designed to interact with the enemy's power systems. Weapons at maximum charge, Zilara reported to Kryvax. Ready to fire on your command, Marshal. Kryvax raised his crystalline arm to give the order, but before he could speak, every power system in his fleet began to resonate at frequencies that should have been impossible. The carefully regulated energy flows that powered their ships began to stutter and fail. All ships, emergency shutdown, he ordered, but it was too late. The resonance cascade spread from ship to ship, turning their own power systems against them. Lights flickered and died across the Dominion fleet as their technology betrayed them. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through their dying communication systems. That was a demonstration, Marshal. Your ships will regain power in approximately 10 minutes. Consider this a sample of what humanity can do. We've spent the last 20 years learning how to turn your greatest strengths into weaknesses. Would you like to see what else we've discovered? In the darkness of his powerless flagship, Grand Marshal Kryvax made the first tactical retreat in Dominion history. As emergency power slowly returned to his ships, he gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. All ships withdraw to safe distance. Initiate diplomatic protocols. The humans had achieved what no other species had managed in 10 millennia of Dominion rule: victory without firing a single traditional shot. As his fleet limped away from Earth, Kryvax realized that the galaxy's balance of power had just shifted dramatically. The Dominion would adapt, of course. They always did. But for the first time in their history, they would have to adapt to someone else's terms. In the Earth Command Center, Admiral Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. Send word to our allies in hiding. Phase 1 is complete. The revolution begins now. The Dominion High Council chamber on Crystalis Prime hadn't seen an emergency session in over 2,000 years. Now, 48 hours after the Earth incident, 12 crystalline beings sat in frozen silence as they watched the battle footage for the 100th time. Supreme Overlord Vexthor, his exoskeleton shimmering with the purple hues of ultimate authority, finally spoke. This changes everything. Grand Marshal Kryvax stood in the center of the chamber, his pride as shattered as the power cores of half his fleet. The humans have mastered dimensional manipulation at a level we thought impossible. Our technology, our tactics, our very understanding of physics. They've turned it all against us. Then we must not fight them on their terms, came a silky voice from the shadows. Council members turned as General Mirax emerged, her black crystal form almost liquid in its smoothness. She was the Dominion's most decorated special operations commander, known for solving problems that conventional military force couldn't handle. Explain, Vexthor commanded. The humans hid their true capabilities for 20 years, but they made one mistake. Mirax's eyes glowed with predatory intensity. They revealed their hand too soon. Now we know what they can do, and more importantly, what they're protecting. In Earth's underground command center, Admiral Blackwood frowned at the latest intelligence reports. The Dominion fleet is splitting up, she noted, studying the holographic display. Smaller groups, moving in seemingly random patterns. Commander Park's augmented eyes flashed with concern. They're probing our defense network, looking for blind spots. Our quantum sensors are detecting micro-jumps in unusual patterns. They're adapting faster than the AI predicted, Lieutenant Singh added. Their ships are modifying their power signatures to resist our resonance probes. Nix's frown deepened. The Dominion hadn't survived for 10 millennia by being stupid. They were learning, evolving their tactics. But that wasn't what worried her most. Where's their main fleet? She asked quietly. As if in answer, alarms blared across the command center. Massive dimensional disturbance detected, Park shouted. But this isn't like anything we've seen before. The main screen showed a tear in space unlike their precise dimensional pockets. This was raw, violent, and massive. Through it emerged something that made even Nex's breath catch. A planet-sized vessel, its crystalline surface reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. The World Breaker, Singh whispered. We thought it was just a myth. Humans of Earth. Supreme Overlord Vexthor's voice boomed across all frequencies. You have impressed us. No species has ever forced us to reveal our ultimate weapon. The World Breaker doesn't just destroy planets. It erases them from reality itself. You have 1 hour to surrender your dimensional technology, or we will demonstrate its power on your moon. Nix's mind raced. The strategic AI had calculated only a 0.001% chance of the Dominion possessing this level of technology. They had planned for every contingency except this one. Admiral, Park said urgently, we're receiving transmissions from our hidden allies. The Senna Collective is ready to emerge. The quantum nomads have their fleets in position. Even the silicon consciousness is offering support. We can fight this. But Nyx saw something in the sensor data that gave her pause. The World Breaker's dimensional tear. It wasn't quite right. The energy signatures were familiar somehow. "Enhance Sector 7 Alpha," she ordered. As the holographic display zoomed in, her eyes widened. "Send an encrypted transmission to all Allied fleets. Tell them to hold position." "Admiral?" Park questioned. A slow smile spread across Nyx's face. "The Dominion made a crucial mistake, Commander. They looked at our dimensional technology and tried to replicate it in 2 days. But you can't rush 20 years of research." She turned to her crew. "The World Breaker's dimensional field is unstable. They've created a tear they can't fully control. And they've just placed their supreme leader and their ultimate weapon inside it. Lieutenant Singh, prepare a targeted resonance cascade. Commander Park, have the Phantom Fleet move into position around the tear. Let's show them what happens when you try to play our game without understanding the rules." High above, the World Breaker loomed like an artificial sun. But within its crystalline corridors, warning signals were already beginning to flash, as the fabric of space-time itself prepared to teach the Dominion a lesson about the dangers of tampering with forces they didn't fully understand. The next few minutes would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of dimensional warfare itself. And this time, there would be no possibility of retreat. Dimensional tear expanding at an exponential rate. Commander Park reported, his augmented eyes streaming data faster than any natural human could process. "The World Breaker's containment systems are failing." Admiral Blackwood stood calm at the center of Earth's command hub, watching as the massive crystalline superweapon began to shimmer with unpredictable energy patterns. Supreme Overlord Vexthor had made a fatal error. He'd assumed that humanity's mastery of dimensional technology was just another weapon system to be copied and deployed. He didn't understand that it had taken decades not just to develop the technology, but to understand its fundamental principles. "They're trying to stabilize the tier," Lieutenant Singh announced, detecting massive power redirections throughout their vessel. "Let me speak to Vexthor," Nyx commanded. When the channel opened, she didn't bother hiding the urgency in her voice. "Supreme Overlord, your dimensional field is collapsing. If you don't shut down the World Breaker's systems immediately, you'll create a cascade that could tear this entire sector apart." The crystalline being's response crackled with static and barely contained panic. "You lie. Our scientists assured me this technology was perfected. In 2 days." Nyx's voice carried a sharp edge. "We spent 20 years learning how to create stable dimensional pockets. Your rush to match our capabilities has created something far more dangerous than you understand." On the main display, the World Breaker's surface began to fracture, lines of pure darkness spreading across its crystalline hull like cracks in ice. The tear it had created was no longer just a hole in space. It was becoming a wound in reality itself. Commander Park's voice took on an edge of awe. "Admiral, I'm detecting quantum entanglement patterns I've never seen before. The tear is creating some kind of resonance with other dimensions, multiple dimensions. Send in the Phantom Fleet," Nyx ordered. "Containment pattern Delta. We need to establish a dimensional barrier before." She never finished the sentence. The World Breaker's attempt to weaponize dimensional technology had opened doorways that should have remained closed. Through the expanding tiers in spacetime, something began to emerge. Not ships, not energy, but shapes that human eyes couldn't quite process. Fragments of other realities bleeding into their own. Multiple dimensional entities detected. Singh's voice cracked with tension. They're trying to manifest in our space." On the World Breaker's bridge, Supreme Overlord Vexthor watched in horror as his mighty vessel began to tear itself apart. The supposedly perfect crystalline structure of the ship was warping, twisting into impossible geometries as space itself rejected their crude attempts at dimensional manipulation. "Shut it down," he screamed, but his crew's frantic efforts at their control panels made no difference. The cascade had begun. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos. All Phantom Fleet vessels. Execute Protocol Omega. Emergency dimensional stabilization. Focus your fields on containing the tear. We can't stop it, but we can direct it. The black ships of Earth's hidden fleet moved with perfect coordination, their crews linked through neural interfaces that let them react with computer-like precision. They surrounded the expanding tier, their own dimensional fields creating a framework that began to channel the chaotic energies. "Admiral," Park said quietly, "if we contain this, the energy has to go somewhere. The calculations suggest." "I know, Commander." Nix's voice was steady. "Better the world breaker than Earth. Better their weapon than our home." The Phantom Fleet's dimensional fields created a funnel, directing the Cascade's energy back toward its source. The world breaker, already damaged by its own failed attempt at dimensional manipulation, began to fold in on itself. "Overlord Vexthor," Nix transmitted, "order your crew to evacuate. Now, we'll hold the containment field as long as we can, but the world breaker cannot be saved." For a moment, there was silence. "Then, you would save us. After we threatened your world." "Unlike you," Nix replied, "we understand that true power isn't about destruction. It's about knowing when to show mercy." The evacuation took less than 10 minutes, a testament to Dominion engineering, if nothing else. As the last escape pods cleared the area, the Phantom Fleet tightened its containment field. The World Breaker, pride of the Dominion fleet and ultimate symbol of their power, imploded in a display that defied description, collapsing through dimensional space until it vanished completely, taking the dangerous tiers with it. In the aftermath, as the rescue operations began, Admiral Blackwood received a transmission from an unexpected source. General Mirox, her black crystalline form somehow even darker than before, appeared on the command center screen. "The High Council is in chaos," she reported. "The loss of the World Breaker. The failure of our dimensional weapons program. Everything is changing. We need to talk, Admiral, about the future." Nick studied the Dominion general's face, seeing something there she hadn't expected. "Hope." "Yes," she agreed. "I believe we do." 3 months after the World Breaker incident, the Grand Conference Chamber of the newly established Galactic Empire hummed with activity. Located in neutral space, a space station jointly constructed by human and Dominion engineers, it represented something unprecedented. A true partnership between former enemies. Admiral Nix Blackwood stood at the chamber's observation window, watching ships from a dozen species move through the nearby spacelines. Dominion crystalline vessels now flew alongside human phantom ships, their crews learning from each other. The Senna Collective had emerged from hiding, their organic technology hybrid ships adding splashes of bioluminescent color to the space lanes. Even the Silicon Consciousness had sent representatives, their quantum matrix vessels shimmering like digital dreams. "Quite a view, isn't it?" General Mirox approached, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight. Over the past months, she had proven to be an invaluable partner in rebuilding the galactic order. The Council of Elders still can't believe how quickly everything changed. "Change was inevitable," Nix replied. "The Dominion's mistake was trying to prevent it for so long." Commander Park joined them, his augmented eyes taking in data from a dozen sources simultaneously. "The first joint dimensional research facility is online," he reported. "The Dominion's crystal technology combined with our dimensional understanding. The possibilities are extraordinary." "And dangerous," Lieutenant Singh added, approaching with several datapads. "That's why the containment protocols are so strict. We're not about to repeat the World Breaker incident." The mention of the World Breaker brought a somber tone to the conversation. The massive vessel's disappearance had left questions that still haunted both sides. Sensor logs suggested it hadn't been destroyed so much as relocated somewhere. The joint scientific teams were still studying the data, trying to understand exactly what had happened when multiple realities had briefly intersected. "The trade agreements are ready for final approval," Mirak said, changing the subject. 6 more species have applied to join the Concordat. They see what we're building here. A genuine partnership of equals, not an empire of conquest. Nix nodded. The transition hadn't been easy. There were still hardliners on both sides who preferred the old ways. Supreme Overlord Vexthor had stepped down, replaced by a governing council that included representatives from all member species. The Dominion was learning to be part of something greater than itself. Admiral, Park interrupted, his eyes flashing with urgent data. We're detecting unusual readings from the Carina sector. The pattern. It's similar to the World Breaker incident, but different somehow. Everyone in the chamber tensed. The memory of that day was still fresh. But before panic could set in, Sane's analysis brought surprising news. It's not a tear, she reported. It's a signal, encoded in dimensional space itself. We're decoding it now. The message, when it came through, was simple. We see what you're building. We'll be watching. The dimensional entities, Mirax whispered, the ones we glimpsed during the incident. They're still out there. Of course they are, Nix replied calmly. We didn't just discover dimensional technology. We discovered that we're part of something much larger than we imagined. The question is, what do we do with that knowledge? The answer came in the form of action. Over the next year, the Galactic Concordat established the Dimensional Sciences Academy, a joint initiative to study and understand the broader multiverse they had glimpsed. Ships of the former Dominion fleet were retrofitted with human dimensional technology, while Earth's Phantom fleet incorporated crystalline computing cores. The Silicon consciousness provided quantum oversight, while the Senna Collective's organic technology offered new ways to interface with dimensional space. They were no longer conquerors or defenders, but explorers of a cosmos far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. The old power structures had crumbled, replaced by something built on mutual respect and shared discovery. 1 year to the day after the World Breaker incident, Admiral Blackwood stood in Earth's underground command center one last time. The facility was being converted into a museum, a reminder of the lengths humanity had gone to protect itself and the wisdom it had shown in victory. Ready for the ceremony? Commander Park asked. The Concordat's official inauguration would begin in an hour. Nix took a final look at the command center where they had hidden for so long, protecting Earth's greatest secret. You know what the real victory was, she said quietly. Not that we outsmarted the Dominion. Not that we developed better technology. The victory was that when the moment came, both sides chose to build something new instead of destroying each other. She turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. The old saying was that war never changes. We proved it wrong. We proved that people can change, whether they're human or crystalline or silicon, or energy beings from another dimension. That's worth more than any weapon we could have built. As she walked out of the command center, the lights dimmed automatically. But in the darkness between the stars, new lights were awakening. The age of empire was over. The age of exploration, true exploration, of both space and possibility, had begun. And somewhere, in dimensions yet unknown, other eyes watched with interest as a young species took its first mature steps into a much larger universe.